What's up? I'm Kiana.
I'm Calvin.
And this is Christ Culture, the podcast.
Yeah, we got a juicy one on the table today.
Yes, we're doing a series called The Power of, and today is the power of reconnecting with God. What are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about what to do with those distractions that stop you from being connected with God.
What it means to actually have a connection with God.
Yeah, and then we're going to break down what a actual connection with him is in the first place.
How you can apply it to your life.
Boom.
Tap in, y'all.
Here we go. I just got to start this episode off by saying I apologize to everybody.
Why?
Because on the last episode, I said that by the time you hear this, Kyrie Irving will be on the Lakers.
Yeet.
Didn't happen.
How you feel about that?
I'm hurt. But I will say the players that the Lakers got, we looked pretty good last night. LeBron didn't even play, so we'll see how it works out. But yeah, I apologize about that. When I spoke a little too soon, maybe I jinxed it.
Yeah. Don't do that again.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not going to say too much, but the Super Bowl is today. I'm not going to jinx anything.
I'm just there for Rihanna, so I don't care. Rihanna and the commercials. That's the only reason why I show up. They can get my views.
We used to have assignments in class, in TV production class, where we had to watch the Super Bowl commercials and like do an assignment.
Ooh.
No, not ooh.
That's fun.
I just want to enjoy the show. I don't want to be doing homework.
No, okay, true. But then it's like what was the assignment? Like you have to memorize
you have to like
marketing.
Identify some of the best commercials, the marketing, like demographics, who they were going for, all that kind of stuff. So,
like what made it stick?
Yep.
What made it make you want to buy the product?
Yeah.
I mean, to be real, like the commercials during the Super Bowl don't make me want to buy the products.
Never.
I'm just there for the humor.
It's just entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, let me ask you this. Do you have any commercials that you like remember?
Doritos.
Which one?
So there was one, I think it was last
Not with the little boy.
No.
Okay.
No, there was one last year. I can't remember. It was like they were in the jungle and the monkey started breakdancing and then all the animals started beatboxing.
Okay, I remember.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And then it was just like Doritos.
I remember that.
Like, what did that have to do with chips?
Yeah. It's so funny you say that for two reasons. Number one, my favorite is a Doritos commercial. But the other thing was my teacher, when he first started teaching about the commercials, the first thing he showed us was this commercial. I think it was like Coke or Pepsi. It was like a 45-second commercial, and 40 seconds was of some woman laying on a car in like a bikini. And then for like the last 3 seconds of the commercial was like Coke. He was like, this is an effective commercial.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, dude. But my favorite commercial is actually a Doritos commercial. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but there was this little boy who was eating Doritos, and some guy had come over to like date his mom or something, or take his mom on a date.
He's like,
and he like reached for his Doritos and he smacked his hand.
Yes.
He said, don't touch my mama and don't touch my Doritos.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
Yeah, that's stuck in my head for whatever reason.
Oh, man. That was good marketing then.
It was, because I remember it.
Yeah, don't touch my Doritos.
Don't eat Doritos. I don't, but
okay.
Good commercial.
See, I don't really eat chips at all.
Me neither. Well, I eat one type of chip. But
Chicken chips?
no.
Okay.
Chicken chips?
You know, the way you be eating, I don't know. Chicken or rice chips?
No, I eat, I think the brand is...
Shameless plug.
Let's clap it up for
Holy Sweat. Tay is watching my
quality
Instagram
control coordinator.
with her volume all the way up.
Tay got her. No, but I eat one type of chips. I think they're Cape Cod, and they're 40% less fat, wavy.
The sea salt drink.
Salt
and vinegar.
No, I do the plain ones.
They're kettle cooked, extra crunchy.
But I get the wavy ones, and they're 40% less fat. That's the only one I eat.
Oh,
Yeah.
They're more guilt free, is what you're saying. You can have more because they're less fat.
Sure.
I think that's what they're trying to say on the bag.
Yeah.
But if any chip that I'll eat, I'll reach for a Dorito.
Okay.
I will reach for a Dorito bag.
Okay.
Like, you know that assortment of chips?
Yeah.
It's always the Doritos that I reach for first.
Okay.
Nobody ever touches the Fritos.
Yeah.
Don't do that. They smell like dog breath. You know what I mean? Like, it just stinks. They stink weird.
How long has it been since you haven't eaten meat? Let me ask you that first.
August. So
Okay.
what is that, 7 months?
So before that, were you like on taco night? Were you like a Doritos person that'll scoop your meat with the Doritos? You ever do that?
Not necessarily, but I did. I grew up as a Girl Scout, and so you would make like a taco bag. So you put everything in the bag.
See, we call
crunch
that
it,
walking
shake it.
tacos.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what we called those, but yeah.
Yeah, we call them walking tacos.
With the Fritos. That's
We
the
used to
only
do
thing.
it with Doritos.
Okay, that's probably better.
Yeah.
But we did it with Fritos, and that's the only thing Fritos are good for: crumbling them up
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like putting them in a bag.
Yeah.
I also did that with waffles. I put waffles on waffles to go. So back in high school, I was always late for the bus, and I
Yeah.
didn't have time for breakfast. So then I geniusly, that's a word that I just made up.
Okay.
Geniusly put my Eggo waffles, would rip them up, throw
Yeah.
them in the bag, so that, and then pour the syrup in the bag.
Yeah.
So as I'm running to the bus, it's getting shaken, and then
Ooh.
I have breakfast on the bus.
What? So you were straight in the bag with a fork, soggy waffles
No,
and
no
everything
fork, just with your fingers,
on the bus.
ready to go.
I know you left some sticky seats.
Heart rate is pumping. I'm just like, I still gotta eat my breakfast, and I'm eating
Dang.
waffles out of a bag.
And then you used to come home, make your peanut butter jelly with your milk, go
Yes,
to sleep.
take a nap, go straight to dance, do
So-
my homework when I got home, wake up, repeat.
You had a nice little routine
Yeah.
going on.
Watch Jersey Shore if it was Thursday.
Okay.
I was anybody else hooked on Jersey Shore? You were? We got one. Okay. Yeah.
I think the last time I watched Jersey Shore was when Ronnie fought somebody on the boardwalk.
That's every episode. And him and Sammy are fighting to make up and
Yeah.
break up, and yeah.
Yeah.
Trash TV. We love it.
Jersey Shore.
Ooh.
Wow. What's going on this week, Keith?
What's going on? Let's see what's going on this week. This week is every week is a new lesson. I feel like
Mhm.
my lesson for this week was trust God's timing, because the week before that was me trusting God,
Okay.
and so this week was trusting His timing and staying patient, because there was definitely a time in this week that I was getting very frustrated, and I felt not even just overwhelmed, but I just felt frustrated that things weren't moving the way that I wanted to.
Yeah.
My efforts, I didn't feel like they were pushing through, and I just couldn't see that things were working. And then the day after, I was super frustrated. God just came through with a whole blessing, and I was like, oh,
Wow.
you be doing that.
Yep.
Why you be doing? And you saw me breaking down and crumbling, and now you want to get, that's just how he be doing it sometimes.
Yeah.
But I feel like you have to go through that crumble to realize the blessing that he's giving you. Like, he wouldn't just give it to me after I was like, dang, I'm frustrated. He'd be like, okay, have this.
Yeah.
I kind of had to like break down for a second and be like, oh, okay.
Because that's how he gets the glory out of it.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. I definitely gave him the glory for that, because I'm like, oh my God, like that was amazing. Because I'm over here like crying, thinking I'm like upset. And then in the middle of that breakdown, I was calling on God. I wasn't just, why, Stella? Like I wasn't just crying for no reason. I'm like, God, please come to me and show me what you're trying to teach me, because I'm frustrated right now. I feel like I'm doing all this work and nothing's paying off. Like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Show me something. I want this to lead me closer to you. And I'm still trusting in you, even though, I might be frustrated. I'm not giving up. I'm not just going to throw in the towel. Like, I'm still going to do what I'm doing, but I want to see your hand in this.
Yeah.
And then the next day, he's like, here's an opportunity. I was like, you're right.
Yep.
You're right. So
That's how he be doing it.
yeah, this week's lesson was trusting in God. So what was yours?
What went on this
Summarize
week?
it into a lesson.
First of all, let's just address the fact that we did not plan to wear the same color today. I know it looks coordinated.
We do love an
but
olive green
you know what I
moment.
mean? Sometimes it just happens.
Everything's green.
like that. Yeah. How was my week? This week I felt like I literally was driving in the car one day and I felt like I was like, man, I just don't feel close enough to God right now. Like I don't know. I was like, what do I need to do? Like, I was just trying to seek his presence, like listen to my music, like get myself back to where I just felt like I was close to him again. I was in those special moments in his presence. And what really helped me was when we decided our topic. So I texted Tay and I was like, what's the topic for this week? And she was like, oh, it's reconnecting with God. And I'm like, that's pretty good, because I need that right now. So I just started doing some of the studying and stuff for the topic today. But that's how I felt this week. And just kind of seeking his presence. Went on my walk this morning, which was dope. That's kind of my happy place as far as.
It was raining.
So.
You walked outside?
Yeah.
With an umbrella?
No.
No umbrella?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Collect the dewdrops on the fro.
Yeah.
Okay.
But during my walks I feel real close to him, and it was just a dope morning. So that's kind of how my week went. And it's going to culminate with the conversation today.
I love that. I want to tap on what you said, where you said you didn't feel close enough to God.
Yeah.
Can we just stay there for a second and what that feels like and what that kind of break down what that is? Because that's a real feeling. I think even as like young Christians, you know, who are new in their faith or even have been in their faith for a while, like I think even when I started my faith walk, I was, you know, you look forward or look into the future and be like, wow, when my faith is strong, I'm just going to be so close to him every single day and everything's going to be great. I'm never going to have a sad day. Like everything's going to be fine. Right. But reality, in reality, it's always going to be a journey. There's no type of destination of, oh, I've been in my walk for 10 years and now I'm good.
Absolutely.
Right. You're always going to need God. And let's just talk on what it feels like to not feel close enough to God.
Yeah. It's, at least for me, it just feels like, and I'll say this, when I first started in my faith, which I hear from a lot of individuals, when you first start off, you're on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's of God. I don't want to listen to bad music no more. I don't want to do this. I don't want to curse. Everything's bad. You're literally on fire. And then as time goes on and you start to like reintegrate yourself into regular life, like you start having those moments like, man, I didn't study the Bible as much as I did when I first started this type situation. And so for me, I've kind of been in that space where I find myself comparing what I'm doing now to how I was when I first started.
Ooh, yeah.
And I just keep finding myself in a space like, is it okay? Like, do I have to go back to doing that?
Yeah.
And I kind of have to remind myself a lot of the time, like, that was never a requirement of God for you. Like, yeah, in the beginning, you want to study his word, you want to be close to him, all those things, because it's all new to you. You're trying to figure a lot of it out. But that's never a requirement from him. Of course, he wants you to seek him, be in his presence, spend time with him. But he didn't write some list and say, here, follow this list every day. And so I'm just finding different ways to always make time for him, but not feel like just because I am living life and doing the things that he's placed on my heart that I'm super far away from him. So for me, when I don't feel close to him, it's just kind of a yearning for his presence is the best way I can say it. So in those moments where you are deep in his presence, like, you know, those moments like you were talking about a couple of weeks ago in the shower where you boohoo crying, like those moments leave a mark in you and you crave them. You know what I mean? So when you go so long without having one, you're just kind of like, I want to find that again. I want to get back there. So that's kind of where I've been, at least for the last week or so.
So many points in there. Because it's like when anybody says I want to get close to God or closer, or I'm not close enough, how do you get closer to something that's already in you? You know what I mean? It's like, I want to get closer to my skin. It's like, were you ever far from your skin? Because it's part of you, you know? So what does that actually mean? And I think definitely we want to get, like, even as we start out in our faith walk and we're on fire, right? We're fired up. We want to chase that feeling of that's my standard, where I'm not a Christian. I'm not a devout Christian if I'm not in the word for an hour every single morning before I even start my day. If I'm not only listening to worship music, if I'm not spreading the gospel to every single person around me, like that becomes the standard. And that's what we want to chase. So anytime, even after real life starts to dwindle and like we become Christians in the world, you know, then we start to have that realistic view of what a Christian is. It's not just I'm a Christian and I'm in my little corner being a Christian. No, newsflash, you're a Christian in the world now. So you have to live throughout the world. You have to live and impact and have different conversations with people. And you're going to have these things that are going to try to tear your faith down. But because you are one with the Holy Spirit now, nothing can turn your faith down.
Absolutely.
You know? So chasing that feeling, I think, is a real thing where we're almost chasing a high. Right? Because it felt so good to have that revelation with God. And we want that all the time. And that's not realistic.
Absolutely.
You know?
So many points there.
Right.
No, but that's why the scripture says you're in the world, but not of the world.
Right.
He wants us literally to be in the world. Another scripture says, go make disciples of all the earth, I think it says. So he wants us to go into the world and live amongst, the people. But yeah, that standard that you were talking about, that standard that's set in the beginning, and we kind of chase it. I think sometimes that can even be a trick of the enemy.
Ooh.
Because it can turn into religion real fast.
Yes.
And there's a difference between religion and having a relationship with God, So for some people, when it goes into religion, then things like going to church, going to the meetings on Thursday at the church, being a part of this or that at the church, it becomes religion. It becomes routine. There's actually no relationship between you and God.
Because it's performance-based.
Boom. Exactly.
Oh.
And the Bible tells us it's not by works or deeds.
Yeah.
So don't think that.
My travel just got here. I got really excited.
Yeah, I was like, why is my co-host exploding right now? Yeah, don't think that because you are doing a bunch of different routine-based things that means you have a close relationship with God. Yeah. And it's the same even with people. Like, say, for example, you go take your mom out to dinner once a week. Don't then run around saying you have a close relationship with your mom. Do you actually have a close relationship with her?
Yeah.
Do you call and check on her? Do you know what she's going through in her life? Do you pray for her? Do you spend time with her consistently? Like, having a relationship with somebody and doing routine-based things, like you said, is so different.
Yeah. Speaking of like connecting it to a relationship, right? So this is how I kind of see it. Our faith walk as baby Christians, like infant, newborn Christians, right? Where we need food, like soft food. We can't chew yet. We don't have no teeth, right?
We nubby Christians out here?
Nubbins. But even like, okay, so you think back to your very first relationship, right? Or like your first serious relationship, or even as like newlyweds, right? You go through this like puppy dog phase, where that puppy dog love is just everything is so over glamorized. The honeymoon phase, where it's like, I just want to kiss your face all the time, and like I just want to be under your skin, like all this stuff, right? But then you mature into your relationship and realize like I don't need to have those like bubblegum hearts all the time to realize that I have a close relationship where I know you and I nurture you, right? Like you don't need to smother anymore because you're so secured into your relationship where you don't need to do that. And it's the same thing with our faith walk, where at first we had that honeymoon phase. We're like, oh God, I love that, all of this. Like I just want to be in my corner and be a Christian by myself. I don't need anybody else. And it's just me and God all the time. And that's a beautiful place to be. I think that's a very important phase that we need.
Absolutely.
We need to have that what's that? We just need to be isolated with God to understand who he is and how he loves and how we can be one with God. We need that phase. In any any relationship, you need that honeymoon phase. You need to be so obsessed, right? In a healthy way, of course. But we also get to different phases where it's like, okay, I don't need to just chase that lovey-dovey feeling all the time because I understand what love is and how mature love is. And like, now I can actually chew this food and digest it, So in our walk with God, it's kind of the same way, where even after that standard has kind of like dwindled down, I don't think that we can ever be far away from God, because we still know his love. We understand how he forgives and how he models that for us to walk into life with other people who might not have the same beliefs or perspectives as us.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think, because I've said that before, where I'm like, oh, I don't feel close enough to God. But then I actually think about it. I'm like, how do I get away from him? I can't get away from him. Even if I didn't read my Bible for months, he's still there.
Still the same God.
So yeah.
I think that goes right into the reconnecting part of this. Because I think in the beginning, if somebody hears the word or words reconnecting with God, the first thing that they say is, if they're not a Christian or if they don't believe in God, that doesn't apply to them. Because they're thinking, how can I reconnect with something I've never been connected with in the first place? But you said something very important about the fact that he is already within us. So literally in Genesis, it tells us that he breathed the breath of life into man. The Greek word for breath of life is literally spirit. So he breathed part of his spirit into us. And then he sent us down into time. We know that God lives in eternity. So that was the first disconnection. Part of his spirit coming down into time, living outside of eternity. So when we accept Jesus as our Lord and Savior, or we quote unquote find God in our lives, for us, it's new. For him, it's just a reconnection. So I think that's the first type of reconnection when it comes to your relationship with God.
We can look away and not see God, but God will always have his eyes on us.
Yes.
We're always in both hands of his, you know?
Yeah.
I like how you put that though. I like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk practical ways of if I feel like I'm disconnected from God, I feel like I am far away. Maybe I haven't been consistent in my performances, right? And maybe it's not even just the fact that I feel like I'm not connected with him, but I want to hear him better in my life. And that's why, like, why do people want to get connected with God again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's talk practical ways on how to do that.
Let's unpack that whole thing.
Yeah.
So first, let's talk about what a real connection is in the first place. So before we can get reconnected, what is a connection in the first place? So when I was looking up the definition for the word connection, you know, I always got a definition for you. It was talking about giving, here, let me just find it and read it so I don't mess it up. Joining or linking things together, especially so as to provide access or communication. So the word that stood out to me was access.
Yeah.
So what is real access? And I started to think about it in the way of like relationships, or our relationship with God even. You can have a relationship to somebody and they don't have access to you, because access is not physical proximity. I can be close to you but have no access to you. I have no access to your mind. I have no access to your heart, your soul, you know what I mean? Just because I'm around you. So when it comes to our relationship with God, it's not just a physical proximity thing. You can't say he has access to you just because you go to church.
Yeah.
You can't say he has access to you just because you hang around people who are of faith. He desires access to the inner parts of you. He wants to be a part of the very like essence of your being. There's actually a scripture that says, the truth is written on the tablet of your heart. Speaking of his word, written on the tablet of your heart. Like he literally wants it to be inscribed on your heart. So that's the type of access that it's talking about when we talk about connecting to God, is granting him access to the inner part of yourself. So that's true connection.
Yeah.
Talk about, in your like personal experience, the difference between just giving him that kind of top level connection to versus when you just opened up and actually let him access you.
Yeah, I was actually going to speak on that with access. You think about it, it's like, you know, when you charge a phone or Apple phones and you have like an accessory like charger from the gas station, and then a message comes up, it's like, do you grant access for this accessory to charge your phone, because I don't recognize it, right? And you have to give it access. That's the same thing with our hearts, where we can go to God and be like, oh God, bless me, and then we're not being vulnerable with him, so he's like, let me access, and you're like, no, I have a wall up, you know, like I'm being protective over this because you're afraid of whatever might happen, right? But giving God that entry into your heart is where you actually find that connection, because a connection is a two-way street. I can't just be like, okay, let me charge my phone without having it plugged into the wall. You know, you need to have access, that connecting point that's from A to B and B to A. It's connected, both right? Ways. Yeah. So to answer your question, like, I believe when I felt the first presence of God when I was 16. I went to one of my friends invited me to like a youth fellowship, like beach trip retreat or something.
Okay.
So it was like a whole week long, and then we had like youth worship. It was like a bunch of 16-year-olds like just in this conference room, like listening to worship music, and that was the first time that I felt God's presence as like a young adult.
Okay.
And ever since that moment, that's when it woke up my search for him all throughout like the end of college or the end of high school and then into college. I was always like, I feel like I'm missing something from God and I don't know what it is. I don't know how to access him. But I feel like I want to go to church. And then it would just be so sporadic the days that I would go. Like obviously I'd go on like Easter or something, but I would go with one of my friends and then it would be like 4 more months until I went again, right? But knowing that I wanted a relationship with him, not knowing how to do it.
Yeah.
So I'd go to church and then I would stand up for worship and then I'd feel shy to even put my arms up, like even holding a TV. Like if you're like somebody's looking at me, nobody cares. First of all, you go to worship, nobody cares how high your arms are, how loud you're yelling. So just if you need to cry, then cry. Nobody's really looking at you. But I was going through the motions, didn't know how to read my Bible.
Okay.
I would just be like, this is a lot of words in a book. I don't read books.
It's a little intimidating
First of all,
in the beginning.
I'm a Sparks Notes person, so that's a lot of words for me to even open.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just go through the motions and expect to have a connection with him just because I'm like, okay, I went to church this one time of the year and then I looked at my Bible and that was kind of intimidating, but like, I know I want you. So like, why won't you come to me?
Yep.
And then I'd be starting to get upset where I'm like, okay, well, maybe I believe in the universe then because I don't hear God. I believe in the thing that he actually created and not him.
Wow.
Ooh. And then I'd start being like, okay, I manifest into the universe that this is going to come to me and this is going to be who I am. And, you know, I'd start to do that and then still felt like there was a void. So then I also went to like other vices. I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to smoke every day then because then I can still feel like my problems aren't there. And I could just numb myself out. Wow. You know, like I would go to alcohol or like going out and like all these other things that just were actually making the hole deeper.
Wow.
And I thought I was like, okay, well, I'm going to find spirituality in some type of way along my path. That's just who I am then, you know? But it wasn't until that God was like right in front of my face that I was like, okay, I can't lose anything at this point. Like I had a friend be like, hey, do you want to do this virtual Bible study? And I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I was like, oh yeah, I can't say no. Let's do it. And then it was just in my face.
Right.
Where I was like, oh, I actually connect with this because here I am in a virtual Bible study with other creatives. And you're talking about how God was with you in this audition.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't get the gig, that God was still for you because he had something else planned for you. And so I was relating the Bible to my craft in a way that I had never read the Bible with people who are in the same field as me talking about Christ in their field, you know, where it's like, okay, now we're talking about gifts and we're sharing a gift that we like say if it's a dancer, she's sharing a concept video that she had and she's glorifying God. And the choreography is so dope. And it's not just, you know, her in this long skirt and this turtleneck. Like it's actually, I mean, that's a craft too. But it's a craft that I could relate to because she's choreographing in a way where I'm like, that's about God?
Wow.
I've never seen that in my life. And now I can relate to it. So I had to find a way that I could relate to God.
Wow.
Where he could meet me where I was at. And finding my people that were kind of like me.
Yeah.
Speaking on God. And turning away from the world.
Yeah.
I had never seen that.
Wow.
So for me, that's what it took for me to actually dive into, okay, who is God for me then?
Yeah.
Because this whole time I'm seeing God as my grandma. I'm seeing God as this church that they're speaking in King James. And I'm like, I still don't know what you're saying. Yeah. Like it sounds like a great message, but I'm not digesting it.
Right.
So once I finally digested it, then I was able to go in and talk to God about like, what are these sins that I'm committing that you don't think are, you know, praiseworthy, and what are these things that I'm watching that you don't think are praiseworthy, and like what are you not liking? I want to hate the things that you hate. So show me in a way that I can understand it because I want that.
So that's when you started to grant him that access.
That's when I started to grant him that access where I'm like, I can see you now. First of all, I can see you, God. So let me give you my heart. I give you my life. I give you my life because what I've been doing in the past obviously isn't working for me. So I trust you with my life and I'm gonna give that to you. And that's when I started to receive, like, I'm not even gonna say receive blessings, but that's when I started to see the blessings that he had in my life.
Wow. That's so relatable because especially you talking about the fact that he had to come at you in a way that was relatable to you. That was huge for me as well. And it actually came through Bible study. Bible study along with my reading. So I went through a period where I started reading a lot of books and found out that I fell in love with stories. And it was relatable because I've done films for a long time, so I love writing scripts. I love making stories. And then when I started doing the Bible study and we start studying the Bible and I started reading it in story format and realizing that it was all stories, that's when that happened for me.
Click.
So that relatable thing is relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And I like, for anybody listening, I just encourage, like, anybody wanting to connect with God, whether it's connecting for the first time or reconnecting.
Yeah.
Understand that God is so team you. He's so like, he knows exactly how individual and unique you are.
Yep.
And he doesn't expect you to conform to another mode of how he wants a relationship with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't conform to the world, conform to his ways, but in a way that you feel like your gifts align with his.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because he can use anything.
He can use anything.
Yeah.
Like, I was talking about this in one of our game nights that we had, but I follow this page on Instagram called 60-second documentaries.
Okay.
And so it's literally a 60-second documentary. They follow these beautiful people in the world, right? But it was about this church who the leaders of the church were like ex-screamo artists, like rock music, right?
Okay.
But screamo. And so they're all like they were like all black and they had like spiky hair. They're like rock stars, but they're a church. And so they redirected their love for this rock music to worship God. So they have like this screamo church and they're worshiping God. And they're all like a bunch of screamo people. Like, if you went, you'd be like, what kind of music, what kind of church is this? But the way that they use exactly who they are to glorify and reach God and people like that. Because usually, like, you would think screamo, they're wearing like dark eyeliner, like they're gothic, they're like devil worshippers, right?
Yep.
You would think, but they're not. That's just how they express themselves, but they worship God.
Wow.
You know, and so those leaders of that church are taking their music to another level, and they're reaching people who actually probably are missing God.
Yeah.
They're missing that void, and they're showing them, oh, this is how you can actually access him.
Yeah.
By allowing him in.
Yeah. Our guy Tim Ross was actually kind of talking about this once, and he was talking about some churches make people feel like they have to use their gifts in the church, otherwise they're not using them for God, which is not correct. You don't have to be using it in a church, and it doesn't necessarily have to be used directly in a way that says, you know, I'm doing this for God.
Right.
Sometimes he just gives you a gift to use in the world, and that glorifies him because you are using your gift. So yeah, don't fall into that trap.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really big too. When I was in my puppy dog phase, that's what I saw it as.
Okay.
Where, I mean, I still do kind of, like, I'm a fitness coach, but my brand is called Holy Sweat, so we be worshiping God, we do it for God. But I really saw it as like, okay, if I am going to do photography, because I also love photography, then I'm only gonna shoot things that are like praising God.
See? Yeah.
And you don't have to do that,
Right?
Because then it kind of just becomes corny. You know, like,
That's true.
It just becomes kind of corny. So I'm like, okay, let me reframe this, I should say, and do it in a way that I still feel like is dope. Like, I feel like it's cool, you know, and it's not that I'm conforming to the world. Like, even if you are a Christian artist, right? You could still be in the hood. You could still be in areas where people are cracked out and still be doing your thing, because you might be that one piece in that area that's going to shine a light, and then people will gravitate towards that and be like, wow, you're kind of like me, but you're so different. What is that?
What's that?
Now I'm curious. What is that?
That's so big right there. And that goes back to that scripture again, in the world, but not of the world.
Right.
And literally, when you're out using those gifts that he has placed inside of you, people will seek you out. There will be opportunities for you to speak about Christ, speak about God, what he's done for you in the midst of just using your gift in the world.
And you can glorify God without even saying, I'm doing this to glorify God.
Yep.
Come to me. Like, you don't have to do that.
At all.
You don't.
Yeah.
You know, because, like, okay, like, I don't curse, right? But even when I go into scene or party scenes, like, I'm not like, hey, I don't curse because I am a Christian. I don't ever say that. I don't think that's ever came out of my mouth. But then people will start to notice, you don't curse? And I'll be like, no. And then they'll be like, well, why? I'm like, I just don't need to use that language and it doesn't feel pure in my body. Or even they'll come to me and be like, hey, does this type of music that I'm listening to bother you? And they'll like start to censor themselves and be like, oh, they say a word and be like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, you're not offending me.
Yeah.
You know who you offended. It's not me, so it's fine.
Right.
You know? So then they start to correct themselves without me even saying anything.
Yep.
I'm like, I didn't say nothing. You can say that if you want.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I don't want to. I know you love God. I'm like, well, he loves you too, so.
Yeah, it's happened to me too.
Yeah, right?
It's so crazy that it happens because sometimes you're like, no, I don't want you to change who you are. Like, keep doing what you're doing. I'm good.
But you can change if you want to.
Yeah,
if you feel
that's
called.
between you and him. I
you feel
wasn't trying to do anything.
Right.
Yeah. So we've kind of touched on a couple different ways of reconnecting. There's a type of reconnecting when you come to him for the first time. That's actually a reconnection for him. We've talked kind of about when you like stray away completely. You just need to find God again.
Yeah.
There's another type of reconnection in kind of the analogy I was thinking was close to what you were talking about with the iPhone and the charger. Sometimes you need to reconnect to him, not because you have necessarily strayed away, but your battery's just low.
Yeah.
You just need to plug back in to get charged back up. So have you ever had a time where you just found yourself like, I'm still close to God. I still love him. He still loves me. But I feel like I need to be charged up right now. I feel low. My battery's down. You know, I just need to plug in.
Yeah. Honestly, this year,
Okay.
like we're only in February, right? But like I felt that this at the early of this year, where like I feel like every day I'm in my word or, you know, I'm listening to worship music or whatever. I'm censoring the things that I'm watching, whatever it is. But I would be like, but I still feel like I need to connect. And what I was missing is the vulnerability.
Ooh.
Where I was going through everything, but I wasn't letting him in. And so that's where I started to feel empty because I wasn't allowing myself to get filled back up where it actually like puncture the seal. Okay. You know? Yep. Yeah.
Shout out Tim Ross real quick. I got the basement hoodie on.
There we go.
On the back it says vulnerability is my superpower. So right along with it,
So like for me, it's not just allowing myself to or positioning myself to get poured into. I need to actually open up my cup to get poured into.
Yeah. And right along with that, like sometimes when you plug your charger into your phone, you ever have one of those cords that's frayed on the end? You got to put it in the right spot. Yeah. So sometimes you just got to get a new cord. So sometimes when you're trying to recharge, you might have to do it a different way than you have in the past. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to just throw the old cord away. Yeah. So that may mean changing your friend group sometime. Yeah. That may mean going to a different church, just depending on what's going on. That may mean, hey, I've listened to that worship song 100 times. Maybe I should see if there's any other ones out there. Like, whatever the case is, sometimes you got to switch it up to get that recharge.
How about you? Do you have a moment that you felt?
Outside of this week, let's see. Where I just needed to be recharged. Honestly, for me, it came, when was this? This was maybe June of last year. I had went through a big part of the medical journey that I was going through in 2022. And then came June, I had just came back to Virginia. I was trying to put things back together, get things back on track in my life. And then I got COVID. And it was bad. And I was just really messed up. And in the beginning, I was just like, man, like, I felt like I was just starting to kind of maybe sort of a little bit see over the mountain. And then I just got pulled back down. And at that point, I just felt like I was out of energy. Like, I was like, I don't have it in me to fight anymore. And that was actually the week that I read my first TD Jakes book, Crushing, that I talked about like in one of our very first episodes. And I found that book and I found that sermon series online. So that was kind of new for me, watching sermons like that online, like a whole series. And it did more than recharge me. It like charged me up past my capacity. And kind of got me back on track for the rest of the year. But yeah, that was definitely a time where I was very low. And had to reconnect.
I love that.
Yeah.
That reminds me of like, so like coming back to the idea of that when you look in the future, you feel like you have everything figured out. Yeah. And nothing can go wrong. Right. God spoke to me this week because in the midst of me trying to have everything figured out, he said, that's not the point. Like, when you get to a point in your life when you have everything figured out, you don't need me anymore.
Wow.
So then what are you searching for at that point?
Yeah.
You just reach that finite point. So I said, well, what's the point then? And he said, the point is to have a relationship with me. I need you to just focus on us being tight, because that's how you're going to trust. That's how you're going to have faith. That's how it's going to build hope. That's how it's going to build perseverance and endurance and all that stuff, all this character.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's going to mold you into this person. So you're never going to have everything figured out. So don't believe this false expectation that the more work that you do, the more things you'll have everything figured out, and then you'll just be at the top.
Yeah.
There is no top.
Yeah.
Because once you get to that goal, then there's another goal for you to reach.
Yeah.
So you're never going to reach the top until I'm done with you.
Yeah.
And I still got more.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Okay.
Okay.
That's like so in line with another Tim Ross podcast that came out this week. He was talking to a therapist.
I was watching it.
You were?
Yes. That's
And
where I was like, it clicks.
Yeah. I forget exactly what they were saying, but they were kind of talking about taking the word destination out of your vernacular.
Yeah.
Like, stop aiming for destinations and just keep going. He was like, the destination is when you're at the end of your life and you're dead.
Yeah. I like the reframe that he said, where he's like, I'll be done growing when I'm dead.
Yep.
And he said, that's not even true, because I will be growing until I die.
Yep.
Because like, I think even us as young people, we feel like, okay, maybe when I'm 30, maybe when I'm 50, I'll reach this point of success, and then I can kind of like level out and just glide, right? Like, how boring is that?
Yeah.
Imagine you're like 10 years old, and then you're like, when I am whatever current age you're at right now, I will be successful, and then I can just worry about nothing. How boring would life be? Yeah. You know, like, if you have nothing to strive for because you figured everything out, then what?
It would be no point to it.
What are you doing?
Like, what's up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How boring is that?
Yeah. Stop aiming for the destinations and just enjoy the journey and continue to grow and continue to seek him and continue to learn. And it just makes life so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Doing it that way. You had a thought. I saw it.
Yep. I was thinking about this in the car on the way here. And to have everything figured out means that you plateau. And think of your life as a movie, right?
Yep.
We get excited, and it makes the movie worth watching when there's a plot twist. Right? When you expect this one thing, you're like, oh, I know how it's going to end. And then whoop, it flips. And then you just like, that changes the whole thing. That changes the whole movie. Now I need to watch it from the beginning so I can see how that played out. Well, our life, our obstacles, the things that we go through is just like that, where we have these expectations. Those are called goals, right? And we're like, we're reaching up here. But then if there's a plot twist, don't think of it as the end of the world. Think of it as a redirection.
Yep.
So then it makes life so much more interesting instead of, oh, my life is so hard.
Yeah.
It's like, no, now I get to overcome this.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And we're creeping into another topic here.
I know. I realized that as I said it. So let's not.
Yeah,
let's
I was
take it
about to
back.
go there, but I was
Let's
like,
take it back. And I was like, that was the wrong episode I was plugging that into, but we're still.
I like where you're going with it.
You know,
though.
I'll bring it back for next week.
Next week.
Next
We'll
week.
get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So reconnecting with God, right?
Yeah. So let me reconnect us with our topic.
Let's reconnect here.
Yeah. You remember those? Oh, what phone service was that where the guy used to walk around and say, "Can you hear me now?"
Oh, Boosty Mobile.
Boost?
What, that was Sprint. No,
that wasn't Boost.
Boost. Can you hear me now? That was Sprint because he switched over to Verizon.
Okay.
They're all the same now.
Yeah. But he used to walk around saying, "Can you hear me now?" And it made me think of connection in the fact that sometimes, just depending on what spot you're in, the literal connection between you and him may be blocked by something. Something may be in the way. So let's talk about some things in life that can block your connection with God.
Another word for block is distract.
Yes.
I'm kidding. Distract. So even you're sitting outside, it's a beautiful day. Then a cloud comes. You can't see the sun anymore. Now it's cloudy. Now your mood, you're sad, right? Because it's cloudy. You still know that the sun is there.
Yep.
You know that the cloud will pass. And even when it's nighttime, the sun is still there. So, knowing that our connection with God is the same, that it's like we can never be without the sun. We will always have the sun. but knowing that there's a cloud right here shouldn't distract my mood.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be so contingent based on the things that are happening around me that affects my faith.
Yeah.
My faith should be so strong. And that's to me what the goal is. Not to have everything figured out, but to have an unshakable faith. Whereas like, even if it is cloudy outside, I still am going to believe and have a beautiful day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've gone through so many things that have shown me that I have so much to be grateful for, that even if this comes into my way and tries to knock me down,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still going to know that there's going to be a sun. It might not be tomorrow.
Yeah.
It might not be a sunny day tomorrow or this week. It might not be in the forecast, but there will be sunny days.
Yeah.
And I know that sun is always going to be there.
Yeah. That analogy is so like perfect, because the Bible literally calls Satan at one point the prince of the power of the air, which means he has the ability to manipulate the environment, because he can't actually terminate the connection between you and God. He doesn't have that power.
Right.
So what can he do? He can only send things to block it or get in the way or distract you, just like you just said. So just like those clouds, that was like the perfect analogy. He can send clouds. He can't actually interrupt the connection. Some other things that can interrupt connection. Let's just throw it out there. People can interrupt your connection with God, whether they are distracting you, through relationship or like whatever the case is. People can get in the way. So how can we practically deal with people who you find are getting in the way of your connection with God? I guess the first thing kind of to do would be to figure out, in what way are they blocking that connection?
I would say pay attention to how you allow them access into your life. Because I can be around people who don't align with my path and where I'm going and what I'm trying to focus on. But if I can take the moment to allow myself to remove myself from that, then I'm eliminating those distractions already. If I don't have the opportunity to eliminate myself from that, then I'm either building boundaries by communicating, hey, I don't like that music. Let's play something else. I got this banging hit from Lecrae. Let's play that, right? Instead. And then you put them on and they're like, oh, this is actually really dope. They don't even realize he's Christian until they're actually listening to the music. And they're like, actually, who's this artist? That's dope, right?
That happened between me and my boy back there yesterday.
Yeah?
yeah.
Come
he was
on,
like,
Lecrae.
who is that? Play that again.
Yeah, see what I'm saying? So it's like, even if you can't take yourself out of those distractions, you can still be yourself. You can still shine your light. Because sometimes you even shining your light and standing tall in your boundaries and your standards, some people will elevate to you and match you. They'll drop their other things to bring their level up to you. Yeah. So boundaries, to answer your question.
And the other thing is, sometimes it can be enjoyable. Like, you can have a good relationship with people and then realize that their connection with you is not bad. Like, there's no red flags going up. Like, you're just having a good time with them. You love being around them, but then also realize it's messing up my connection with God. Maybe because I'm just hanging out with them too much. Maybe because some of the things that they get into are just taken away from my time with God. Like, whatever the case may be, you might not have a bad relationship, or they might not be a bad influence, but it's still interrupting that connection. And that's even more of a fine line to walk, because it's like, how are they going to take it when I approach them like, hey, we can't spend that much time together no more. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to have grace in that situation. And you might not necessarily have to go to them and be like, hey, you can't come around me anymore. You're taking too much of my time. But just realizing it within yourself and being like, you know what? I know we have a good time together. I know I love them. They love me. But maybe it's just taking up a little too much of my time. So I need to designate more of that time to God, or whatever the case is. So it may not always be getting rid of people, but just reallocating time or energy or whatever the case is towards God.
Yeah. I think going along with that too is not necessarily saying like, hey, I'm going to be stepping back from you because I'm spending too much time with you and you're distracting me. Like, you don't even have to do all that sometimes, but instead, like you said, realigning that time. So if they're like, hey, you want to go out to this club tonight? And being like, I don't really want to go out to the club. You can be like, actually, I'm staying inside tonight because I have this bomb like Bible study. You're welcome to come with me if not, but this is what I'm going to be doing tonight.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't even have to say no all the time, but it's like, oh, actually, I'm doing this instead.
Yeah.
You can come, but this is what I will be doing. This is where you can find me, you know? But that takes a lot of guts too. So to say no is so much easier said than done, but you regain your power by being able to turn certain things down when you don't believe in them.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Regaining your power.
Mm-hmm.
Because it'll also set a standard with them too. Like, okay, I can't just have all their time. They'll
Right.
start to realize that on their own. You won't have to say anything
Yeah.
to them. Yeah, that's huge. What other type of things can block our connections besides just people?
I would say the things that we're taking in, like the things that we allow ourselves to watch.
Okay.
Like I would have to most recently I tell myself not to get on social media after a certain time.
Okay.
Some days are good, some days I suck into it, but because I know that if TikTok or Instagram, social media is the last thing that I see before I go to bed, then my brain isn't like ready to receive the next day.
Okay.
Where I wake up almost overwhelmed of like, okay, or not even waking up the next day, but like as I'm laying there to go to sleep, I'm kind of running a replay of all the things that I just received, of all this content. Now, remember a few episodes ago, I talked about how I recurated my timeline.
Yep.
So like, it's not necessarily a bad thing that I'm reliving these things, because sometimes I reach some content that's really inspirational and really practical for me, and I'm like, oh wow, that really stuck with me. Let me review that because now I'm remembering this message that they spoke, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes that's good, but it's just almost like sensory overload for me the later I do that. So I have to limit my time, especially at the end of my day.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, instead of me just aimlessly scrolling, that could easily turn into like an hour. Let me just be mindful and reconnect, and then just actually take this time to pray with God.
Yeah.
And just talk to him for a second.
Yeah. That's a great one. What you're seeing and hearing. The scripture I was hearing while you were saying that was faith cometh by hearing. And that just talks about the stuff that you're taking in through your senses. You remember Pastor Furtick preached a message about that, guarding your doors or something like that? Do you remember that?
I think so.
And he was talking about how your eyes, your ears,
Yeah,
all those things are your doors, and you have to guard them and kind of curate what comes in and goes out. So yeah, that's definitely another thing that can block your connection with God, is the things that you are intaking. And for me personally, that was huge. Like I just had to look at a lot of the TV shows I was watching. I was like, maybe I just don't need to watch that. Like, even if I feel like I can watch it and nothing happens, but still, even with like music, it was just like for a while there, it was like, I didn't want to hear anything but gospel music.
Right.
And it was just like, cause I don't want to take anything else in, cause I can't really understand what it's doing to me in this moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though my thoughts aren't changing towards it in that very moment, what is that doing to the inner me?
Yeah.
The inner parts of me that I can't see right now.
I wanted to put that into like, or put it to the test kind of, to see, because in those moments where I'm like, oh, this is kind of like guilt free, it's not bad if I just watch this, or like even like sex scenes in like movies or something, I'll be like, it's just one, it's only like 20 minutes, I'm not gonna skip ahead because then I'll miss half the scene. It's fine. But I wanted to put it to the test to see like how that actually altered my thoughts.
Okay.
So just kind of being more aware of my thought patterns after I intake a certain visual.
Yep.
And then almost like I never really like physically wrote it down, but I would just like mentally take note of like, oh, I watched this like 3 days ago, and now I heard the song and it reminded me of that. And now it's taking me back to this memory, and this memory makes me want to miss that. And then me missing that makes me want to act on this way to make it happen again. And it's like a ripple effect.
Yes.
So then I started to notice where those patterns started to come in. I was like, oh, that's actually really true.
Yep.
That the little things that we feel like are just so like innocent, or it's like, if it just happens once, what big deal is it?
Yeah.
Like it actually leads down to a ripple effect.
Yes.
So like, with the music that we listen to.
That's so big.
Like not even just with it being like violent. I mean, everybody has their own like weaknesses, but like it was like, for me, it was like the sexual stuff where I'm like, I'm trying not to have that, like, especially like in a relationship where you're trying to stay pure.
Yep.
I was like, we can't be watching that.
Can't be hearing
we
that
can't be doing that, because
Nope.
now we're inspired.
Yeah.
We are inspired, and let's try it. Like, let's not do that, know? So yeah, like certain goals that you have for yourself, and especially in your faith, and what your weaknesses are.
Yeah.
Don't try to feed it, because once you feed one little bite, it's like a cat, a stray cat. You put milk out, and it's like, oh, it's so cute.
Keeps
want to
coming
nurture.
back.
He's gonna keep coming back, and now he's living with you.
Yep. I just need to let that all breathe for a second, because that was huge.
We're not cat people. Ooh,
like
taste a cat.
The music thing is just so. The music thing is so big. Like even for me personally, with my pride, I won't say the specific song because I actually like the artist, so I don't want to like down him. But there's a song and it just maybe I should just say it.
Who is it?
Drake.
I thought you were gonna say Chris Brown.
Oh no. But there's so you know the song Legend by Drake? If I die,
Sing it, yeah.
I'm a legend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's old Drake.
I love that song.
Okay.
But the more I would listen to it, the more I would find myself saying with everything. I'm a legend. I've done this. I'm doing this.
Wow.
So now every time I'm shuffling my music and it comes up, I just skip it. I love his music. I love the song, but that's just one of those things for me. I can't let that into my system because then I start saying about everything. And it's all me and it's all my power and I'm a legend and I've done this and I don't want that. God's done all this through me.
That's
so
big.
yeah, so
That's
just
big.
like what you were just saying, that's a big thing for me as well. That music.
Props to noticing that.
Yeah.
I feel like so like as a kid, you ride a bicycle, you got training wheels, and then you like start to take the training wheels off and you're riding like the bicycle, right?
Yep.
You be falling off and stuff, and that's how you learn.
Yep.
So that's the same thing with our faith where we can't just expect to be like, oh, I know how to slice the devil when his schemes come. Like I know how to block him. You only know how to block them once you like start to see his cards.
Yeah.
Once you start to see his hand, you're like, oh, I'm not gonna fall for that again because you got me like 4 times before, and I got it. I got it now. So no. So, especially coming from your baby faith into like a more mature faith, it's understanding that you still have to go through these tough trials. The trial and error.
Yep.
You will go through the trial and error to understand how to fight the devil's manipulations because he is a trickster. He knows you. He knows the word. He knows how to like manipulate to make it sound good and sound juicy and everything. But you have to go through those trial and errors to make note of how to then move differently.
Yeah. Because he's watching. And like we were talking about him blocking that connection. We're talking about that connection. His blocks, they're curated. He's watching you and figuring out all the things about you and saying, how can I block that connection with them?
Yeah.
It's specific. So the things you see happening to somebody else might not happen to you.
Yeah.
But he'll look at your life, look at your patterns, look at what things come into your mind and say, that's how I can block them. And he'll start sending that stuff into your life real lightly, just pushing it into